This is a live mic check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
All right, welcome to the, excuse me, the November 7th meeting of the Kennebunkport Planning Board. For attendance, we're missing 2 people. We're missing Larry and Scott, so George gets to vote unless some of them show up. But okay, so the first item on the agenda is the minutes of the last meeting. Everybody get a copy? Any problems? Good to me.
I noted one typo that I gave back to Tricia, the number.
And is it fixed?
No, it's not, in the one that just got handed out, although she said she would take care of it, so I might have just.
Probably, she hasn't given a copy to Lisa yet.
So if you look at the back, it says that at least 4 members of the planning board had to be in attendance
It's supposed
at
to be
the
3,
selectmen, and
yeah.
it should be 3, and 3 people are listed. It's just a typo.
Yeah.
So with that correction,
Okay. So we'll, we should then move to approve it with that correction.
Yeah, she said, oh, that is what she got back to me. She'd fix it after it was approved.
After it
We
went
approved
out,
it
after
tonight.
the email went out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as they're going to be corrected.
Second?
Fair. All in favor? Okay. All right, excuse me. Item number 180901, Ledges at Ocean Avenue. And this is a public hearing for exchanging of 2,007 square feet of property between two lots. And go for it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Ralph Austin. I'm here tonight representing James and Jennifer Viola, who own lot 11 at the Ledges at Ocean Avenue subdivision, as well as James Mandel, who owns lot 10 in the subdivision. As our application indicates, this is for a minor revision to an approved subdivision. The Mandel and Violas want to exchange small pieces of property to readjust the property line. As will be shown on the plan, when the driveway for the Viola property was installed, it was placed too close to the common boundary line, right up to the common boundary line, and it gave them no room really for maintenance of the driveway, for snow plowing, or certainly for landscaping around it. So they contacted their neighbor, James Mandel, and he was agreeable to exchanging parcel land between the two properties so that the line will be adjusted, as shown on the subdivision plan. It's basically a 2,007 square foot parcel of land that would be exchanged between each party. It will not result in any change. The net size of each lot after the exchange will be the same size as each lot before the exchange. There are no setback violations. There's no change to the frontage on the Washburn Drive. And Article Section 9.4 is what we're working under, which allows for minor revisions to approved subdivision plan, such as lot line exchanges, as long as no new lots are created. A question was raised at the initial review about whether the homeowners association was aware of this or had any involvement. I contacted Kim Jarmus, who's the president of the association. She reached out to the other two directors, and she sent an email, very short, but I did send it to Warner, and I believe he made that available to the board members, but that the homeowners association was all set with the lot change. That's our presentation. We'll take any questions that the board or the public has.
Well, any questions from the board? Okay, then I'm going to open the public hearing. And seeing no abutters or other public people to, I'm going to close the public hearing. Excuse me. And I guess I will accept motions to approve this item.
I'll make a motion to approve the item.
Okay.
I will second that motion.
All in favor? Okay. Now, do we have a copy of the, you have the,
Yes.
oh, good. I was worried about that. Okay, so you're going to read the finding of facts.
Yeah, and then we also have the Mylar to be signed.
Sure.
Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision, approval of minor subdivision revision application, lots 10 and 11, the Ledges at Ocean Avenue subdivision, Kennebunkport, Maine. To revise the Ledges at Ocean Avenue subdivision to change the lot line between lots 10 and 11, keeping both properties the same size. Following a review pursuant to the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and land use ordinance and a public hearing held on October 17, 2018,
November. None of us noticed that one.
Okay. That was the other meeting. We'll correct that. The Kennebunkport Planning Board renders the following decision. Findings of fact are as follows. The properties are located at the Cape Arundel zone and have addresses of lot number 10 and lot number 11, Washburn Drive, off Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport. 2, the applicant for lot 10 is James Mandel, 22 Washburn Drive, P.O. Box 1307, Kennebunkport. The applicants for Lot 11 are James M. and Jennifer T. Viola, 20 Washburn Drive, P.O. Box 1009, Kennebunkport. 4, the applicants are represented by Ralph W. Austin of Woodman, Edmonds, Danlick, Austin, Smith, and Jakes, PA, 234 Main Street, Biddeford, Maine. 5, the properties are identified as Map 20, Block 4, Lot 3M and 3L on the municipal assessor's maps. 6, the owners of Lot 10 have demonstrated legal interest in the property by providing a copy of a warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 17146, pages 36 to 38, dated December 4, 2015. 7, the owners of Lot 11 have demonstrated legal interest in the property by providing a copy of warranty deed recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 17110, pages 811 to 813, dated October 6, 2015. 8, the final subdivision approval for the Ledges at Ocean Avenue was approved by the Planning Board on January 4, 2006, and is documented in findings of fact, which are recorded in the York County Registry of Deeds, Book 1474, pages 434 to 451, dated January 20, 2006. 9, the two properties to be exchanged are comprised of 2,007 square feet, or 0.04 acres, more or less, of land. In an application dated September 19, 2018, the applicants propose to each convey an equal size of property to improve maintenance and landscaping. Both parties agree to this exchange. Frontage and lot sizes will remain the same. A survey was conducted and is attached to this application. 10, the Homeowners Association of the Ledges at Ocean Avenue has agreed to this conveyance. 11, this amendment to the subdivision plans qualifies as a minor revision in accordance with Section 9.4 of the Kennebunkport subdivision regulations because no additional lots or dwelling units are being created. Decision. In accordance with Articles 7, 8, and 9 of the Town of Kennebunkport subdivision regulations and Title 30-A MRSA paragraph 4404, the Planning Board grants approval of the applicant's final plan of application. Conditions of approval. 1, this approval must be recorded with the Registry of Deeds within 90 days of approval, or it becomes null and void unless an extension is granted by the board in writing. 2, the applicants will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances and subdivision regulations and of all applicable federal and state regulations and approval, as well as specified in the final application, all of which are incorporated herein by reference, dated November 7, 2018. So I should
Just cross it out.
cross it out and write
initial
in
it,
November
yeah.
7th?
Cross out the date,
And just initial it.
just initial it. That'll be-
Not write in a new date?
No, right in the new
Okay.
date.
That's what I thought.
And just put an initial next to that and sign it. We'll do the same thing on the other copy.
Pretty exciting.
So I guess we need to go over, briefly go over there and initial your bylaw.
Sign in the same place, too.
Okay, you have to sign the same there.
You beat me to the
It's a
punch.
Mylar, 3 paper copies, and you have to sign the same line in each one.
Okay.
For the registry.
Very precise.
Okay. And we use the same pen for all three?
Doesn't matter.
Okay. Just want to be sure.
Uno.
Excellent.
while we're signing, the next meeting after today is December 5th. We're not having a meeting the day before Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
Well, Mr. Taylor, you want to get started? The next item is 180902, George H. Walker 3 and 91AB Ocean Ave Cottage. And this is a public hearing on a replacement of the existing pier, wharf, ramp, and float with a shorter pier, ramp, and similar float. Introduce yourself again, even though you have a fairly memorable name.
To my grandmother's chagrin, it was, middle name's Charles and not Scott. But I apologize, I thought I had printed these color and realized when I just opened up the folder here that these are black and white, so for the velocity zone one, I just marked it up because there was, the difference in the grades was tough to see that, so.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Zachary Taylor, here representing the Walkers for their dock project, and the project as it stands is in essence to replace an existing dock that is in need of being torn down and replaced. So as we went through in the previous meeting, the goal is to remove the existing dock, dispose of it, and build a new dock in the center of the parcel. The new dock will be the will be a 6 foot wide by 32 foot long fixed pier leading to a 3 foot wide by 35 foot gangway that will land on an 8 foot long by 25 foot wide, 200 square foot float located by pilings. And as part of the review process for the application review, there's some requests to see the dock located in relation to the velocity zone. So one of your handouts is such, so it's in the AE zone. The velocity zone ends towards the mouth of the harbor, the entryway into the Kennebunkport River, and then the other was a plan or a map showing the dock in relation to the abutting docks. So the abutting docks, the one to the north is about 81 feet away, and the Nonantum is the abutting dock to the south, and that's about 206 feet away. And be happy to answer any specific questions that the board has regarding the project.
So,
Yeah, I had several questions. As I look back over this, when was the dock, the current one, last used? It looks like it's beyond use right now.
Yeah, the decking, essentially it was in use until the decking started failing, and now it's, it's not even safe to walk on, so.
Right. When was that?
I don't have the specific date. I don't know when the last time somebody was actually on the dock, so.
Not this past season, though.
No, it wasn't this past season.
Or when I looked at the pictures in 2014, it looked like it was already in this disrepair.
Well, it was certainly in disrepair, but I don't know when the specific date to which they had, stopped using it regularly.
Right. I know that you've made some discussion, I don't think it said it in the application, but some of the discussion was that I was looking for a way to allow a 6-foot wide pier, when our regulations explicitly say they can't be more than 4 foot wide. And I haven't been able to find that. It seems to me that this structure isn't grandfathered. It's been in disuse for greater than 18 months. You're not replacing it. The grandfathering clause doesn't seem to apply. And I may need some help with this, Werner, but that's how I read it. It says here, the reconstruction or replacement of a non-conforming structure. This is section 8. Section 8 is tough. 8(3)(b)(5), replacement of a non-conforming structure. Any non-conforming structure which is located less than the required setback or lot line or normal high water line from a water body, tributary stream, or upland edge of a wetland, and which is removed, damaged, or destroyed by more than 50% of the market value of the structure, may be reconstructed or replaced, providing that permit is obtained within 18 months of the date of such damage, destruction, or removal, and provided that such reconstruction is in compliance with the applicable setback to the greatest degree possible. So it seemed like we're not in a grandfathering situation. We're really proposing a new pier. And I'm looking for a way to say why we are allowed to authorize it.
So, obviously, at the last meeting, I had more concerns and reservations about this.
You transferred them to me.
In preparing the findings of fact, because it seemed like most of the board was in favor of this, I got a little more comfortable with it, and mainly because of, it's the same section, it's 8(3)(b)(4).
Okay.
And it's not, I didn't really look at it as a reconstruction or replacement of a non-conforming structure. I guess I view that section as you're taking the existing structure and you're essentially, it's been damaged to the point of you can't really fix it. You're just replacing what is existing currently.
Okay.
That's kind of my understanding of 5. So in 4, so the current structure is non-conforming, but you're relocating that structure to a different part of the property. You're making it in conformance with the setback requirements. But it does say, in no case shall a structure be relocated in a manner that causes the structure to be more non-conforming.
Right.
In my view, that wharf section of the reduction in the footprint, the 23%, or the purported 23% reduction in the footprint from the existing to what they're proposing, to me, I can at least get behind that part of the ordinance to say it's less non-conforming, it's not more non-conforming, despite the fact they're going from 4 to 6 feet. Because that wharf is 6 feet by 24
So
feet
the surface area
wide.
is reduced.
Yeah, so that's
No, and
kind of where I was.
I agree with that, and really that's where I was going at the last meeting. It's just I got to thinking about, at what point does that pier not exist? In other words, if there once was a pier there, the pilings were still there, would this still be the same? You could relocate it? If there used to be a pier 20 feet to the right, and
Well,
this hasn't been there in 5 years, but can I go build one now that is less non-conforming than that one used to be? At what point does it no longer exist?
He wants to.
so
Help me
I've, in the, almost 14 years now that I've been doing this, we've gotten a lot of those phone calls. And I think
Okay.
the town has dealt with a few of those in actually litigation process. So if there's some pilings that are still in the ground, and there used to be a dock here, and people really stretching for kind of grandfathering the
Perfect
structure.
example.
But it's something that's still, the dock's there. I mean, do they use it the way that they used to? No, obviously this past season, the decking's at a point where people aren't using that anymore, but it's still, it's still pretty much a dock, whereas when you see a dock that's either in the water, like fallen over, or there's no decking left on it, it's just a bunch of pilings, and somebody's trying to stretch for, oh yeah, it's a dock, I'm just trying to grandfather this dock that you couldn't build before. That's, obviously that's stretching the situation, but this was a previously functioning dock that has been and hasn't been just left for the past 10 years rotting away. They've gone through the permitting process over the past I forget when they started this with the board and with the DEP, and continually going through the permit process, and because of X, Y, and Z just haven't been able to execute the rebuilding of it. So this isn't where they're just showing up out of nowhere and the dock's been rotting away for the past 10 years, and now they're deciding to try to grandfather something.
So I take your point. So would you argue then that my thought that this section 5 should apply is maybe incorrect because it is not damaged or destroyed by more than 50%?
Yeah, it wasn't an instance where there was a large ice flow and took out half the dock. It's essentially just a dock that needs to be replaced as opposed to.
I'll go with that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so just to, a little bit more background. So the case that Zach is referencing, my recollection from that particular case was that we had a situation in town where we had a location where a dock had been, and really what remained were the pilings. The pilings were still there. Property owner had made some incorrect assumptions about what they could do, and had proceeded to go ahead and to place joists and decking on those
Routine maintenance.
on those existing pilings.
Sure.
And so, long story short, the court came back saying that the pilings were there, and that you had the right to repair those, maintain those, but you didn't, for a structure that was no longer there, was physically removed from the site. That now that's a different story. So in that particular case, they were not permitted, primarily due to the velocity zone restriction, to put additional structure back in. In other words, the actual deck portion.
Right.
But the court did say that you're allowed to maintain the structure that exists there, which in that particular case was the pilings.
That's helpful.
Okay, so, any other comments, or shall I
One
open
one
the
more,
public
one more
meeting?
question. When it was approved by the board in 2014, the 4-foot wide pier still had a 20-foot wide, what was called a wharf section on it. And it was approved by the board saying it conformed to all of the regulations of the ordinance. But then it wasn't built. Were all of the permits that were required, like the DEP permits, were all of those granted, or was it not built because DEP wouldn't let you build one with a
Nope.
20-foot wharf.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Yes, they had the approved permits to build
right.
that. So,
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I guess I will open the public hearing. Seeing no public willing to discuss this one, I will close the public hearing. So, I guess we're ready to, are we ready to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay,
I'll second it.
all in favor? Okay. Now, I know you had, I don't think we've all had a chance to read it, so maybe the best thing is to read it next time, or are
It's
you
up to you.
ready to go?
Yep.
I don't know.
I read it.
I read it, but are
Okay.
we all okay with it as is?
It has not changed since
All right.
I sent it around, so.
Then let's read it, and we'll be done, we'll be completely done with it. That'll be great.
It's almost like you'd done one of these pure following of facts before.
Yeah, right.
The only problem is our notary public left.
I think we have another one.
Oh, good. Fantastic.
All right, Kennebunkport Planning Board findings of fact and decision, application of 91A-B Ocean Avenue Cottage LLC, 91A-B Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine, 04046, to remove an existing 4-foot by 60-foot permanent dock, which leads to an approximate 6-foot by 24-foot permanent wharf and an 8-foot by 24-foot seasonal float, and replace it with a new 6-foot by 32-foot pier, leading to a 3-foot by 35-foot seasonal ramp, which leads to an 8-foot by 25-foot seasonal float for tidal access to Kennebunk River. Following a site plan review pursuant to the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance held on October 17, 2018, and a final public hearing held on November 7, 2018, the Kennebunkport Planning Board makes the following findings of fact and conclusions and renders the following decision subject to the conditions enumerated below. Findings of fact are as follows. The applicant is 91A-B Ocean Avenue Cottage LLC and George Walker III, the applicant, with a mailing address of 19 Portland Place, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. The applicant is authorized Riverside Marine Construction, DBA Riverside, and Pickering Marine Contractors to act as the agent for this matter. The property has a street address of 91A-B Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine. The property is located in Village Residential, Resource Protection, and Shoreland zones. The owner has demonstrated a legal interest in the property by providing a warranty deed dated December 11, 2013, and recorded January 9, 2014, in the York County Registry of Deeds at Book 16761, pages 515 to 518. The property is legally non-conforming and consists of 0.73 acres, more or less, and 2 residential buildings and a legally non-conforming dock. The property is located at 91A-B Ocean Avenue, Kennebunkport, Maine, and is identified as Map 8, Block 1, Lot 14 on the municipal tax assessor's maps. There is currently an existing 4-foot wide by 60-foot long permanent dock with an approximate 6-foot long by 24-foot wide permanent wharf and 8-foot wide by 24-foot long seasonal float, which is legally non-conforming, the existing dock. The existing dock is not in compliance with Land Use Ordinance 511B5 as it is located within 25 feet of the northerly abutter and thus violates the current and applicable setback requirements. The existing dock is also not in compliance with Land Use Ordinance 511B9 as the permanent wharf section is wider than 4 feet. In an application dated September 14, 2018, the applicant proposes A, to remove the existing dock and construct from a different location on the property into Kennebunk River a new 6-foot wide by 32-foot long pier, a 3-foot wide by 35-foot long seasonal ramp, and an 8-foot wide by 25-foot long 200 square feet seasonal float. The seasonal float and seasonal pier are to be removed and stored elsewhere and not on the property or in an upland location on the subject property during seasons of non-use. The proposed pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal dock will extend approximately 71.2 feet or 12.94% into Kennebunk River, which measures approximately 550 feet across from the same point. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B15 requirements. By removing the legally non-conforming existing dock and replacing it with the new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float, there is an approximate square foot reduction of 23% from the existing dock to the new proposed pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float. 9, the property and proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float are located outside of the velocity zones, as shown in the most recent flood insurance rate map produced by FEMA. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B1 requirements. 10, the proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float is not located within the habitat of a threatened or endangered species as mapped by either the Maine Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife or the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B2 requirements. The proposed new seasonal float measures 8 feet wide by 25 feet long, 200 square feet. This meets the Land Use Ordinance 511B3 requirements. The applicant and property have approximately 116 feet of shore frontage. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B4 requirements. The proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float will be located at least 38.8 feet from the northerly abutter and at least 59.6 feet from the southerly abutter. With the removal of the existing dock, the new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float will be brought into compliance with Land Use Ordinance 511B5 requirements and thus in compliance with all applicable setback requirements. 6 of the proposed support pilings for the proposed new pier will be located in between the existing bands of salt marsh that are present along the shore and will not result in measurable soil disturbance. The lowest section of the new pier will be located at least 4 feet above the ground near the areas inhabiting emergent vegetation. The proposed deck boards will be no greater than 5.5 inches in width and will be spaced 3/4 of an inch apart. The applicant does not propose stairs. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B6 requirements, and any reference with respect to deck boards being spaced 1/2 inches apart is interpreted as a minimum spacing requirement and not an exact spacing requirement. The proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float are not located within an existing developed or natural beach area. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B7 requirements. The proposed seasonal ramp and seasonal float will be in place on a seasonal basis and stored outside of the coastal wetland in the upland or off-site during the off-season. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B8 and 511B16 requirements. The surrounding area is developed with both residential and commercial structures, including docks associated with those structures. The proposed new pier will be 6 feet in width, and the seasonal ramp will be 4 feet or less in width, and the support pilings for the proposed pier will be located approximately 14 feet apart. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B9 requirements in all respects other than the proposed new pier being 6 feet in width. The removal of the legally non-conforming existing dock and replacing it with the proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float results in an overall square foot reduction of approximately 23%. Despite the proposed new 6-foot wide pier, this reduction in square footage results in the new proposed structure being less non-conforming than the existing dock. This meets Land Use Ordinance 83B4 requirements. No lighting is proposed for this project. Land Use Ordinance 511B10 is not applicable. No structure is proposed to be built on, over, or abutting the proposed new pier, seasonal access ramp, or seasonal float. Land Use Ordinance 511B11, B13, and B14 are not applicable. The proposed project is located in the Kennebunk River at tidal water. Land Use Ordinance 511B12 is not applicable. The proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float will be used for recreational purposes. This meets Land Use Ordinance 511B17 requirements. Further, there is no proposed change in use. The proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float is an enlargement, alteration, repair, or the rebuilding of a non-conforming pier, dock, walkway, wharf, ramp, or float. Thus, Land Use Ordinance 511B18 is applicable, and the proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float shall be governed by the provisions of Article 8 of the Land Use Ordinance. The removal of the legally non-conforming existing dock and replacing it with the proposed new pier, seasonal ramp, and seasonal float results in an overall square foot reduction of approximately 23%. Despite the proposed new 6-foot wide pier, this reduction in square footage results in the new proposed structure being less non-conforming than the existing dock, thus meeting the 83B4 requirements. The applicant has received approvals from the Maine DEP and the Army Corps of Engineers. The applicant has requested no submission or performance waivers from the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance. Pursuant to the requirements of Article 10.10A of the Land Use Ordinance, Planning Board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes a negative ruling on one or more of the following identified findings, which would otherwise compel denial. And I won't read all of them. So A through P, all of the findings are either yes or not applicable. 27, when a proposed development will be located within the shoreland or resource protection zones, in addition to the requirements of the Kennebunkport Land Use Ordinance, Article 10, the townwide regulations in Article 6, the performance standards for specific activities and land uses in Article 7. Approval of the development will also require that the board makes positive findings based on the information presented that the proposed use will maintain safe and healthful conditions, yes. Will not result in water pollution, erosion, or sedimentation to surface waters, yes. C, will adequately provide for the disposal of all wastewater, not applicable. And then I won't read the rest of them. D through H, they are all finding of yes. So any negative finding by the board means that the application has been denied. 28, the application is otherwise complete. Conclusions, Articles 10.10A of the Land Use Ordinance mandates that the planning board shall approve a site plan application unless it makes one or more identified findings that would otherwise compel denial, and as noted above, the board makes no such findings. Decision, the site plan application identified above is hereby approved. Conditions of approval. 1, the applicant pursuant to 10.11 shall notify the planning board prior to the transfer of rights to construct the approved project. 2, the applicant must record a copy of this decision and provide proof of such recordation in the form of a copy thereof attested by the Register of Deeds before any permits may issue or before any construction activity may commence. And 3, the applicant will comply with all terms and conditions of the Town of Kennebunkport ordinances, as well as the Maine DEP and U.S. Army Corps of Engineer approvals, dated November 7, 2018.
Move the approval of that finding of facts.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Okay, let's get it signed off. So, Mike, you might as well come up and get started with your presentation. This is item 1810001, 181-001, Mills Road subdivision, ATAR Engineering authorized agent. It's a minor subdivision change. So, go ahead.
Thank you. Can you hear me all right, I take it?
Oh, yeah.
All right. As Mr. Chair stated, I'm before you tonight for a minor revision to an approved subdivision. The original subdivision approved on August 2nd of last year, 2017, originally called for a 14-lot residential cluster subdivision. The subject parcel is 27 acres in the Free Enterprise zoning district, and the proposed work was for a 980-foot road named Barrels Way for utilities. All lots were to be serviced by private individual drilled wells and public sewer. There was an 800-foot force main sewer extension from the existing gravity main northerly along Mills Road, and all lots were to have 1-inch force mains to that 2-inch main extension, either through grinders or Barnes Ecotrans. Everything else, surface runoff, stormwater was to be managed on-site by 3 detention ponds, and I believe that's it for the approved recap. Revisions are only to sheet 1 and sheet 2. Sheet 1 is exclusively to general note 15. I can read it. The original note read, quote, "As a condition of approval, satisfactory yield and quality of water for each individual lot shall be provided prior to the release of any building permits." Building permits, we're requesting that to be changed to occupancy permits. And with me tonight, I have Walter Smith and Paul Flaherty of Cripple Creek and PDF respectively. Walter, would you like to, oh, I know he, okay.
Okay, want to discuss the other minor stuff?
Yeah, I can go over, sheet 2. Okay, let's do it first. The proposed changes to sheet 2 were additional information to be provided on the bearing and distance or meet and bound labels. The original approval, how do I properly word this? We didn't provide enough information necessary for the new lot lines that would be established for the division of land. So consider a long stretch along lots 4, 5, and 6, even though the bearing itself would be the same, the distance was not separated for where new lot lines would be divided.
So you're not actually changing the lot lines, you're just better defining them.
Correct. There was no alteration to the size or bearing or distance of any of the lots. It was just additional information that was not provided with the original approval.
All right, well, let's see. You, 3 of us were here when this was approved. And as I recall, between the preliminary and final site plan approvals, there was a lot of concern about the wells.
Correct.
And getting it at occupancy permit is like, Warner, sorry. The normally when you check the well, when do you check the well now?
Correct, so,
At occupancy
so
rather than
typically at final inspection, requirements for occupancy require that the builder or the property owner provide us with a copy of a satisfactory well water test showing that the drinking water meets the minimum drinking water standards.
And the yields and such.
Yep. In this particular case, I think one of the additional challenges is making sure that there's enough yield to deal with the fire suppression systems there as well. Because this, if you recall, the subdivision approval requires that each dwelling unit have an NFPA 13D system installed. So that's that's an additional flow requirement that they'll have to meet. But most designs incorporate some type of a storage tank, that helps accommodate that.
So when you go from building to occupancy, are you going from basically putting in a foundation to when the lot owner is about to basically take over the house? I mean, I don't know what the building there means.
Building permit.
The building permit?
Required to
Yeah.
start digging
I
the
mean,
foundation.
typically in process, the well is one of those items that doesn't typically happen in the very beginning stages.
Right.
For the most part, that tends to happen either mid or towards the end, after the majority of the site work has been completed. Or at least, foundation has been put in and, and backfilled. typical before the, before the well driller shows up.
Well, I'm trying to remember when we built our house, I think it was required from the faucet,
Oh, as far as where the water sample's taken?
yeah. But here, you're saying occupancy means right after the well goes in?
Well, that's how this,
See, it's the final,
that's how this particular
Final inspection.
restriction reads. And I think that's, that, and, I would let the applicant speak, as far as for the practical implications of what that, of what that restriction is implying. Really, what that restriction is implying is that you have the well and that you get an adequate, water sample and flow rates, at the time that the well gets put in, and that presents,
which really makes very
presents
little
a
sense, since
practical
you may have
issue.
to have water treatment stuff inside the house
Correct.
to get it right.
That's right,
Right.
yep.
Okay, so I guess I understand.
So you're saying this would be normal practice, Werner, to have it at
At the-
occupancy time?
Absolutely, yep.
So this was unusual or an error that it was at building permit
I think this
time?
was unusual, I think it was, there were a lot of concerns, about water capacity, at the time, so,
Right.
yep.
There were a lot of discussions
Yep.
about the fire suppression system that was going in there.
I guess what I'm getting at is was this done overtly to put in this restriction, and now we're gonna eliminate it, or was it an error? Did the previous,
I think we just
you think she
overlooked
overlooked
that
it? All right, it
language there.
wasn't meant to mitigate a concern, or, okay.
No, they were drilling a well up top of the hill to get rid of a lot of the concerns, as I recall.
Got it.
I may,
Go ahead.
my name's Walter Smith, I'm one of the members with my partner Paul Flaherty here of Mills Road LLC, which owns this project. Actually, Chairman Doak, it was your motion, which was iterated by the then chairman, which you adopted
Right.
on May 3rd, and basically that motion was approval of our preliminary plan for the subdivision on two conditions. One was peer review, which has obviously
Yeah,
happened.
right.
And two was we show proof of quality of the water in the existing well on the property, which we did in the next meeting.
Correct.
I believe it was the next meeting. I mean, it may have been 2 meetings
May have
later, but
been
we
two.
did that.
Yeah, no, you did,
Yes. And
definitely.
so that was it. And I think this was just an oversight, and
Sounds good.
frankly, I just didn't catch it at the time.
I have a quick question.
Certainly.
Just so the deed, Mills Road is the current owner.
Mills Road LLC owns the
Okay.
property currently, yes.
It just, the application is on behalf of Cripple Creek.
Cripple Creek and PDF Development are the two participants initially who applied for the subdivision.
Okay,
Yeah. It should probably be in the name of Mills Road
Okay.
LLC.
all right.
Technically, you're right.
Just wondering where
Yeah.
that,
With the two people that
Connection
started the
was.
ball rolling, yes.
Yes.
Two entities, I should say. That is, no, that's the band.
No, it's the band, yes,
Not the Grateful Dead
absolutely.
band.
Although I have heard the Grateful Dead.
Oh, really?
do it,
It
yeah.
is? I didn't know that. That's interesting.
It's all put together.
Learned something. Thank you.
Okay. So, no, I remember all the concerns, and you did mitigate them, and at some point you were gonna drill a second well up the top of the hill, and that never happened, I think. We all agreed that it didn't need to.
Well, we discussed that because it was impractical, we couldn't even get a.
Yeah, she couldn't get,
walk
you
up-
didn't have a
we
road
couldn't walk
yet.
up.
They never wrote in at that time, that's right.
It was just an impractical, possibility.
Yes,
So you guys let us go with testing and improving the quality and quantity of the existing well.
right.
And we did also some more, we had another study in there from, Dick Sweet, the
Paul,
hydrologist.
can we get you up to the microphone? We can't get your comments for the minutes if you're not talking into the mic.
Walter Smith again. There was discussion of a second well at the time. We didn't have a road in. The real legitimate concern was damage to the wetlands, trying to get a vehicle in there. It was then decided that we provide quality and quantity of the existing well, which is on lot 1.
Right.
We did that, and Dick Sweet provided a study showing there was an ample aquifer in this area for water supply.
Okay.
Okay. Any issues here? Okay. shall
Tom, are we looking at, is the application complete?
Is the application complete? We'll have a public hearing on December 5th.
So from that completeness point of view, not having participated in any meaningful way originally, now I can look at minutia. The application, as Neil pointed out, is in the wrong name, and probably should be corrected to say that it's Mills Road to be consistent with the deed.
Understood.
Okay. I didn't see a list of abutters in my copy of the application.
Okay.
I don't see a map. In fact, interestingly enough, you provide a list of the things that should be in the application, which made it easy for me to
Just see what
be
was
critical.
missing.
Oh. Hold on, right then.
If an owner is not representing himself, a signed and dated letter of authorization doesn't seem to be included here. So some of the housekeeping things are, that I'm sure were in the first application that was
Yes.
approved, maybe could be transferred over for completeness.
Right.
No. You
So
should
I
have,
don't
yeah.
think we can call it complete.
No, I don't think it is.
So, two things
That
missing.
shouldn't stop us from scheduling it, though.
We could still schedule, I think, could we still?
On a promise that they will
We're not gonna say
be.
it's complete until we see them fill
Yeah.
in the rest of the
Yeah.
pieces.
I don't think there's anything that you don't have. It's just the package isn't.
Right, no,
Can
I
we-
understand that.
Can we deem it conditionally
You
complete?
can deem it.
Yeah, why don't we
conditionally,
deem
but-
it conditional?
And that way we can move it along?
So that we can move it along and still have the
No, I
public
agree,
hearing
that
on
would be
December
my-
5th.
That would be my
Sure.
preference.
Okay, but make sure it's.
Yes, as
we
it
will
was.
first vote completeness on, before the public hearing
Yeah,
next time.
the
Have
application
all abutters been notified
of the,
These changes.
of these changes?
So they're initially notified, yes, whenever we're in receipt of an application, and then they also are notified once a public hearing has been scheduled.
Okay, where's the
Yeah.
list?
But there's no
who does
list.
There's no
that?
list.
So that's typically that notification is handled through the code enforcement office.
So Lisa would
So
have
you,
picked up
Lisa
that.
would figure out that list.
Well, typically it's the applicant that provides that,
Yeah.
It's
as
not
well.
here this time,
Correct,
so
yeah.
I think
But-
there's a question about it. That's
But
all.
we, at times, will pick up the, the notification piece, but it is up to the applicant to have that as part of their application.
So again,
Okay,
if we
but the-
could confirm that.
The
Yeah.
question is, have the abutters been notified?
I believe they have, yeah.
Okay.
There's an initial notification of receipt of application, and then they'll get the certified once there's a schedule for public hearing.
Okay.
All right, so since it's, can we, as Werner, as was discussed, can we call it conditionally?
Yeah, you could approve it
approve
subject to receipt
completion,
of
To receipt
Yep.
of the rest of the
the
things
items
that are
that,
missing.
the items that you've noted, yep.
Yeah. Okay,
Do you have any questions about what it is we're looking for? Or do
no,
you-
I don't.
Okay.
It's the content that was provided with our
Yeah.
original applications back before the final approval was,
And the list you
Granted.
gave us this time.
Yes.
so, very
yeah,
good.
yeah,
and plus you'll change the,
yes,
change it to Mills Road.
yes,
LLC.
Mills Road LLC instead of the two
the other
original
two.
separate
The
entities.
old two, yeah,
I understand.
okay.
I'll make a motion to deem it complete, subject to the receipt of the additional information.
Second. Anybody?
I'll second that.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. So we'll see you December 5th, and hopefully before that, like before Thanksgiving if possible, we'll see the changed pages.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay?
So just to show the board, so here's a copy of the notice that goes out to folks, okay? That says that we have it, and then there's the
List of abutters.
There's the list of abutters
You
there
have the
that,
list of abutters,
you
yeah,
know,
Holding out on us.
from the last one.
well, it's in the, again, you know, part of this is stuff that, you know, at times gets handled by our office,
Got it.
so.
Okay, well, thank you. And lastly, we have item 181002, 136 North Street, Shepherd and Reed authorized agent, a site plan initial review for approval to convert a previously existing trucking facility into a boatyard. So,
Yeah.
you can identify
Getting
yourself.
lonely around here. Good evening. I am Bruce Reed of Shepherd and Reed. And they were trying to help me out a little bit here. I did the same thing, as I hope all of you know. I gave you a packet, nice red bound packet that my assistant took down to the printer, listing all the things that were in it. And the first thing that was, the only thing missing is the actual plan, which I refer to in my letter. And I delivered a hard copy today. I mean, the reason, this is now, do all of you have this? I delivered, okay, good.
We have a PDF of it a while back.
PDF, I've also got extra copies that, I can pass a couple around now.
Well, we have the.
Yeah, we made sure everybody got a copy. Yep.
Okay, I appreciate that, Warner. The truth of it is, Brian Boschman, I will say that I represent Brian Boschman and his LLC, 136 North Street LLC. Brian is in Key West tonight at a boat event, so he's not here. He will be here for the public hearing, trust me. But the reason, Brian had met with Warner several times to discuss this. He purchased the property from Richard McCabe and, some time ago, and that was a trucking facility, and Brian had met with Warner a number of times, and as we were getting our submissions ready, we presented a version of this plan to Warner, and Warner said, I think legitimately, I know legitimately, that, you know, we're not on public sewer here, can you show us where the septic system is and demonstrate that it's working properly? So, we did that. That is in your packet.
Yep.
And I was trying to save Brian a little money by not having Dave Hughes from Livingston Hughes have to superimpose Jim Logan's work on the plan. If this board wants that to happen, it can. But in any event, you have a plan from Jim Logan showing the location of the septic system and his report saying that there's been no failure and there are no issues with it. Right. Which kind of gets to the gravamen of this application, which is that it's we feel a reduction in the intensity of the use here. This is a trucking facility. You all know where it is. It's right up the street here. Mr. McCabe had a number of trucks there for a long time. There are still some there on site. Now, if you drive past, you'll see a boat out there, and that is Brian's boat that's shrink-wrapped, and his car. I think it's an Audi. He has a nice Audi that he's got covered up for the winter as well. But the intensity of the use when it was run by McCabe was a number of employees. Brian will have none. He has a few independent contractors who come in to assist him in his work. It's a great space for him. I've been on the site, and it's a great big bay. He has a good storage area for his equipment and his tools. He was just up Log Cabin Road. Was that still in Kennebunkport, Warner, his previous operation? Was that Arundel? I think it might have
Which
been.
side of the road was he on?
He was on the left side going out.
On the left side, he's in Arundel.
That was right, that's kind of what I thought, yeah, because he had a very small shop there, just an old garage. This is a really nice step up for him, and he was friendly with Mr. McCabe. They came to an agreement on the sale. So, there really isn't much to add to what I have said in my letter. Brian has been careful to go to all of his residential neighbors. I know we have the Historical Society, and I believe a cemetery. We did go and attach our abutters list. Everything else except for this plan was in my packet. We notified all the abutters, and Brian has been careful to go around to everybody who's a person who lives there. And I told him he wanted to know if I should submit letters, or we should submit letters now. I said, let's wait till the public hearing. and people are prepared to come and say they've spoken with him and understand what he's about to do and support it. But that will come at the public hearing. So there really is, I'm happy to answer questions that the board may have. I think I've provided everything that the ordinance requires for submissions. We're not proposing any signage, no additional lighting. This will not be an operation that is intense in terms of, you know, he'll have a period in the spring where he's commissioning people's boats, and he will have a boat sales area that's shown on the plan here. He'll have some boat brokerage area, as it's called. This area here is existing. It's a concrete, sort of a half wall. It's where his boat is shrunk wrapped now as you drive past. It's a 27 by 60 foot containment area. He's going to use that to power wash boats, and I've given you the best management practices from DEP that he's going to be following. I would expect that to be a condition of approval if you get to that point. And in talking with Werner, he indicated, you know, where are you going to park employees? Well, we showed a parking area. It's huge, but Brian will not have employees. He will park there, and if he has an independent contractor coming over to help him do something, they will also park. It's a large site for what he needs to do.
Is he likely to park boats up there too?
He will likely park, yes, boats, I think he will. He'll winterize them and store them there. Yeah, boat storage, he's proposing for here. This area, he's indicated for parking vehicles.
Yeah. Well, I just,
Which I don't,
if it got totally filled up with boats, you might get some objections from neighbors. That's what I'm.
yeah, that's a good point. I think he could live with a reasonable cap on the number of boats or size of boats.
Is all of this free enterprise zone?
I believe so. Yep,
That's correct.
It is?
yep.
So we don't have to worry about grandfathering in use?
So I think, you know,
This
from
is
a, from a
conditional
use,
use there.
from a conditional use perspective, you know, you have, you know, quite a number of uses that describe, you know, this level of activity. You know, we have, conditional uses within the zone. You know, we have boatyard, we have, yeah, the ones, you know, we have boatyard, we have, well, marina doesn't really apply here, but primarily the boatyard definition, along with the ship chandlery, definition, you know, and then I think along with the fact that this property has had, you know, a long-standing commercial use with, you know, large trucking storage,
Well,
you know,
what
things of that
I'm
nature.
concerned with there is that it's had long-term trucking storage and so forth, but very little traffic in and out, and that particular intersection gets very busy. And, you know, North Street comes in, and River Road comes in there, and Cemetery Road comes in there, and Beechwood comes in there, and even just a little ways up, Synod Road comes in there, because I go through there all the time. Do a lot of people, and I'm just worried about not just use, increase in use, but if you're going to have boat storage there and large boats, what about visibility in that intersection?
Yeah. Well, he's only proposing a little one down on Arundel Road, so if he's not proposing to store boats in that parking area.
Yeah, Brian, it's a good question. I mean, I
We need
didn't
to
really want to
get
answer
that
too quickly.
squared away.
But no, he's not anticipating a ton of boat storage. He worked carefully with Dave Hughes on this plan. So if that's your concern, Ms. Perlmutter, I think you.
Well, it is, because
Yeah.
there are so many cars that come in there, and the
get
stop
it.
signs and everything,
I
and
miss
being able to
Winks,
see.
being there. I used to go to the sandwich shop all the time, and I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
It's a lot of intersecting roads there. So I think in terms of the traffic, as you just pointed out, it's not gonna be a ton of traffic. The boat comes in, it stays there for 6 months, and it gets towed out, but
but you've got a parking area right there where visibility could be limited, and if somebody comes in and parks, you know, like a 150-foot boat that's kind of tall, there could be a problem there.
yeah, I
So we
can't.
need to know the intents
Yeah.
of use the
That's a good-
intended use of that parking area. If it's
Yeah.
just for cars, it's ridiculously large for a
Yeah,
couple
no.
of people, but
It,
that's fine.
it sounds like it's going to get a lot more active than it has been, but that doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be so much more traffic in and out. What I'm
Right.
concerned with is
Yeah.
sight lines
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
that intersection.
There we go.
Right, so as long as they store their boats down, a ways down Arundel Road here, maybe it's not a problem.
Yeah,
And don't park giant ones in the parking area.
Yeah, don't park
Yeah,
giant
that's-
boats in the parking area.
and I
So how do we,
honestly,
how do we address this concern?
That's a good question.
So, Bruce, one of the things I think that might be helpful, that's not readily apparent on a plan, and I think this is something that probably Dave, Hughes could do, is just, an overlay of this plan over an aerial.
yeah,
And I think just, because we're looking at property lines here,
Yeah.
and so I don't think it's, it's as easy to visualize exactly what you have for, for the road and where the sight lines are.
if we had
Yep.
a GPS or a Google Earth image behind
Yep.
this or underneath it.
Yep.
Yeah. Because even
I
in
think
your
you-
boat brokerage area, it's fine if you're just, taking a Boston whaler and showing it off or something. But if you're showing off something that's pretty tall, you could affect sight lines along North Street and River Road coming in there.
Yeah.
That-
I mean, that area looks like it's all blocked by the building, though.
I can't tell
The-
that from here, but
The boat brokerage area, since it's directly adjacent to the building, you wouldn't be able to see across to Arundel Road anyways, because the building's in the way.
I
No,
think
but
our
it's
major concern is the.
It's a legitimate
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
and I think Jim, when he produced his plan, didn't he use a Google Earth image? Yeah, he did. This is the kind of thing you'd like to see maybe from Warren.
Yeah, that may be
Yeah.
just a little bit, but with the other pieces on it.
Yeah, and I don't want to speak for Brian because he isn't here and this hasn't come up, but the idea of a 150-foot boat on this, first of all, I don't know how you get it through Dock Square or anywhere else, but I realize 150 feet is probably an exaggeration, but if you want a size limit, I think the longest boat they might store chicks is 40.
Well, I'm just looking at the tractor trailer lengths that are,
Well, there you go.
there, and you've got, probably got tractor trailers that are at best, 45, 50 feet in length.
So that's good for me to be able to go back with, to come back with a plan that can show sight lines.
I would like to see the
That's fine.
sight lines if you
Understood,
park a
yep.
boat there, and
And
that's,
once you see it, we can just take a drive down. I mean, everyone goes by this area all the
I
time, so.
drive by it all the
Yeah,
time.
so I think it's just envisioning it would be helpful,
Yeah.
and then we can easily see that it's gonna work or not.
That's fair, that's fair.
I mean, the building's back far enough, but your parking area and your brokerage area, I could see someone trying to see if someone's coming along North Street, coming out from Arundel Road or something like that.
And if there's a logical way to say, look, because of these sight lines, you can park, maybe 10 feet off the line or whatever it might happen to be, or shorten or reduce that window of parking, I'm sure we can deal with that.
Werner, is there a town office that would help with a question like that, where the applicant could go to and say, look, I'm gonna use the lot this way, or is that your office? It says
Be the highway
the
department.
police department or the
I
highway
mean,
department?
as far as
Sightline,
as far as
blocking
sight
an
distance.
intersection or impairing an intersection. It'd be nice if you could have a public official weigh in and say, no, that's not gonna be a problem.
Well,
There
so-
is someone who comes out and looks at sight lines for.
correct, we do a review of site distances as it relates to new entrances into public ways. And there is a restriction within the ordinance in terms of what you can put within a certain distance of a right-of-way. I can tell you that, it may be helpful, we can just go to that language and then you can,
It depends on the.
You can apply.
Speed limit along the road.
well, that's for the site
well
distance,
defined.
but what I'm referring to is there's a restriction for obstructions. that would limit sight distance, which I think is what I'm hearing is, that's what the question is.
The speed limit changes there from 45 to 30.
Drops
You're
to
coming
30.
down Log Cabin,
Yeah,
it's 45,
it's-
and then it changes to 30.
It's 30 right there.
Right there.
Yeah,
That's exactly right, yeah, right at the corner.
which sometimes people obey,
Right.
sometimes you.
Sometimes they get caught.
We try.
Yes.
30 and I.
Yeah, that's a favorite place
So-
for the
Arundel
local
Road is, I mean,
gendarmes to
Walker
hang
Lane's
out.
probably 25.
Where are you?
So this doesn't totally fit, but I think it, might give you a little bit
Gives you the
of
sense.
better guidance. So on, so Article 6.15, entrance to public ways. And so where we're looking is so it's going to be 6.15C, minimum sight distance required. And so I'll go ahead and read it so folks can hear it. After November 4th, 2003, no property owner may erect any structure, fence, wall, sign, or install any landscape features that would diminish any existing driveway sight distance below minimum sight distance of at least 10 feet for every mile per hour of posted speed limit on the street. Sight distance shall be measured from the driver's seat of a vehicle located 10 feet behind the curb or the edge of the shoulder line of the street, with the height of the driver's eye 3.5 feet above the pavement, to an object with a height of 4.25 feet located within any travel lane of the street. So, to some degree, that we're coming at it from the opposite direction here. You're looking at it as far as sight distance from the street, and this really deals specifically with sight distance coming out of the property. It's meant to address obstructions that may be located within a public right of way, as a driver is entering into the public way.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit more like a common sense analysis. I don't think we've got anything in the ordinance, but I hear your concern. It's legitimate. If we had boats stacked up right on the property line, chock-a-block, it is a multi-street intersection, and I agree. But I think we're gonna find that we're gonna be able to do this. But I'd rather not have to go to the expense of a traffic engineer. I think we can overlay this plan onto some Google Earth image and use common sense here, I'm hoping.
The people.
I mean, from a practical reality, if this were a residential property, or any other for that matter, you would have a 20-foot building setback along the curvature of this, of this property line, along the Arundel Road,
Yep.
and your North Street property line. And I think that, and again, you're not necessarily gonna find anything specific, but, that may give you some direction in terms of,
Maybe that's where the big boats could
well, an adequate
have the
distance,
same setback.
an adequate
I got
distance
you.
back. Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that would
a
make sure that you've
interesting
got
approach.
adequate
That's a good
sight
way to
distance
put it.
around the
Yep.
corner.
Yeah, but I've seen, people cruise down Arundel Road and go right across North Street onto Walker Lane without even looking at what's going on North Road. I mean,
Yes,
Well, I'll admit to having run the stop sign with my daughters in the car, one coming from Cape Porpoise, coming this way.
Yeah.
There's two stop signs. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
There's Walker Road. You get two stop signs. If you only focus on one, you miss the other. So I know what you're saying. It's the type of thing where it's a little confusing. The whole,
Yeah.
that part of town
there's
is a little confusing.
different roads coming in there.
Yeah.
and they're not all coming in at the same point, and that makes it,
The
difficult.
Arundel the road actually curves around and then goes straight across to Walker Lane.
Yeah.
Which isn't really on your picture, but it is right there.
Up in here.
No, it's right at the edge of your property going that way.
This way?
Yeah, it goes right across.
Right, Arundel Road's here, right? Walker Lane is like right there, this legend sign.
That's right, yeah. Yeah, that's right, you turn right. Well,
But today I was coming up there while they were paving, and there was a frustrated person coming out from Arundel Road down there and pulled out in front of me.
Let's say he's wildly successful. 5 years from now, he finds out there's a great business in brokering boats. Why couldn't he just expand into the large parking area and start stacking boats in there?
Well, we have to make sure he doesn't have that ability in his.
Right.
That's on us.
Maybe
I'm
through a
assuming
setback
that you're
thing.
gonna put some conditions on, you know, we're talking openly about, I like Warner's idea of a setback. That's the idea of behind a setback is to afford for sight distances among other things. So, you know, I'm open to however you wanna, you know, if he gets wildly successful, which, if any of you know Brian, he's a pretty soft-spoken, he's not looking to light the world on fire
It's
here.
free enterprise zone,
But
it's
he
a
may,
conditional
yeah.
use, if he gets very, busy there.
Yeah.
You know, he should be able to stack boats, but not within sight lines.
Right, I
Okay,
agree
or
with
he
that.
can buy the sandwich place across the street from
Yeah, since
people
Waits is
retired.
gone. That's right.
I missed the tuna sandwich from there, I'll tell you.
Then you'd have to deal with the Arundel on that one.
So that.
By the way, we
that's
did-
that's a good segue to a
Parking lot
related
is in
question.
Yeah,
But the building is in Arundel.
Is this is right on the town line?
yes,
Is
I was
that-
just gonna mention the fact we
Town lines
did
are really-
realize, after we submitted the original abutters list to Lisa, that we
Yeah.
needed to go to Arundel, so we did, and we got everybody within 200 feet on the Arundel side as well, so they've been.
Okay, because that's not in the application, it's just the Kennebunkport side is in here.
Should, well, maybe, is that true? Is
Well,
the abutters list only,
I'd
doesn't
love-
mention the Arundel?
I'd love to be proven
No,
wrong
no,
on
no,
that.
no, listen, you caught the last applicant, and it was correct. So
That
here's.
was probably my one for the night, though.
No, well, just, I
Yeah,
will
so-
represent to you that we did go back. Have you got it?
So what I have is, I have what's been provided to me was, well,
Section 8 in the,
so the GIS maps is just a Kennebunkport database, and so you're only gonna see
Yeah.
Kennebunkport properties on that database. But what was provided to us, and I have, within the application that we have, are, lots 21, 20, 19, 17, 16, and 15 from the town of Arundel. And we have copies of their real estate bill in here, that shows, their addresses, so.
and so they've been notified.
They are on the abutters list.
Yes, sorry,
Yeah.
but it's not in your packet.
They're just not shown on that, on the
No,
part of the
there's
part of
no
the
numbers.
application.
These are our numbers. These are our map lot blocks.
So as with the last applicant, I can supplement
That would be
the
nice.
abutters list. We have it. Yep, good point.
Right, as long as they're notified of the public hearing, then we're
They-
good.
Yeah, we paid for them to be notified. They were notified of this hearing, so.
All right, I'm sure Lisa
look
was
at them
all
all.
over that.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
real
Really?
concerns.
Well, Arundel, I'll be there tomorrow night. That's a different kettle of fish.
I guess to satisfy some questions and curiosity that I
Yeah.
had, in going through this, I am wondering if there's an issue that we're missing, so to speak, and I don't know the question to that. Are we here just because this is a conditional use and that's the sole purpose, or was the McCabe operation something that is a prior use that maybe is non-conforming now, and you're essentially bringing it into conformance, or,
I don't think there's any conformance issues. This is,
no?
I don't think so.
Okay.
this is
Not if you're in
simply a
free
conditional
enterprise.
use, and conditional uses come before.
Well, I mean, the
planning
free
board.
enterprise obviously has certain conditional uses. If the current operation does not fit within one of those conditional uses, then why wouldn't that be non-conforming? I'm not saying it is, I'm questioning.
Would this be an automobile-oriented business that's there now, or,
I suppose,
I
that's,
mean, for
I mean,
example, that would be a conditional use.
Right.
In the free enterprise zone. I think it's just saying, going from one conditional use.
I guess the reason why I bring it up is, the applicant keeps harping on the fact that the intensity of the use is gonna be less under this operation than the current.
Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm thinking, well, why are they highlighting that? Is it because 8.8C says that a change in use, if it can't create additional burdens or, what is it? Provided that the new use has no greater adverse impact on the subject and adjacent properties. And I'm not saying that it's going to, I'm just trying to highlight a potential question that down the road, we may need to just put
I
in
think it
some.
has, considering every time I go by there, how much activity there is, I think it has the potential to have a much greater use,
Mhm.
and greater intensity.
Yeah,
There's
I
no
agree.
question about it.
yeah. Okay. I wasn't saying that that was an issue, I'm just
No,
more.
I get it. I did harp on it a bit, and, you know, Werner and I and Brian have talked about this from day one, openly saying, well, hopefully this isn't gonna be a huge heartburn for the planning board because of this. Now, but you ask, well, what about the existing use? Was that permitted? It was either grandfathered or it was, you know, it's been there for a long time. And I do feel as though, the number of boats you'll see there, as compared to the number of trucks and the employees that Richard McCabe had on site will be less. But we are proposing to have boat
But
brokerage.
you never saw
and-
much activity from those trucks.
Yeah.
Very rarely did you see activity, and I can see at least twice a year, a lot of activity if you're going to store boats. They have to be backed into spaces and so forth, and
Yep.
you know, which area you're gonna come from, what road are you gonna come from, and how much will it hold up traffic?
Yeah, he does have a pretty good driveway entrance there. If you notice when you go by it, you can swing in pretty easily there, but you're right.
If this were if this was unused land that was there, and this was the first proposed use for it,
Right.
we certainly wouldn't be able to have something that had less activity on it than an unused piece of land. We'd be looking at it to say, is this a reasonable fit for that location? Is it gonna be burdensome to the neighbors, or is it suitable? And it seems to me that should be our first order of business. I wasn't familiar with that section. I'll have to go
Well, I
back and
was
read
just-
it. You make a good point, but it's just sort of hard to think about it in terms of, once
Yeah.
you use something for a rest home, you can't ever do anything that isn't quite
Well,
as peaceful.
I
Well,
think you, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think you
Yeah.
can convert it, that's fine. It's whether, you know, is the current use, is that non-conforming? Such that now it needs to fit within, you're changing it to a conforming use.
I don't think it is non-conforming.
I don't,
Yeah,
No,
you'd have
I
to
think it is an
maybe
allowed
bend some of
conditional
these
use.
I know,
conditional
yeah.
uses, but I mean, it obviously
doesn't- I mean-
predates the,
the conditional use is the trucking facility,
I think
doesn't
so.
necessarily fit within those, but I see that the automobile
Oriented business.
oriented business can fit within that.
What if someone wanted to put a gas station there?
It's another
know.
use. I don't think
Going
that's
to
allowed.
Automobile service
a very
station.
different
retail business, I mean, you know, that's pretty,
No, that's a
Yeah,
good point,
Yeah, so
actually.
I think that particular section though, where you're dealing with the non-conforming uses is that, you know, you're dealing with a, you know, what I would consider is a clearly, you know, like a legally non-conforming use. You know, we have, you know, some type of grandfathered use that's occurring on a piece of property. And then you're wanting to switch it over to another non-conforming use. And it's
Yeah.
what judgment are you using to say that, you know, the proposal is, you know, either equal to or not as intense or not as bad as the
That makes
current
sense.
non-conforming use.
Okay.
but in this case, are we not agreeing that that this is a conforming use,
Yeah,
the new one? Whether the old one was, you know, which predates the land
Well-
use ordinance.
I think the existing one
There's a
was
question
conforming.
that gets raised here, though. You say conditional uses under here, subject to site plan review.
Right.
What exactly are you reviewing? And I think that's a good question.
Well, I mean, I think what you do, I mean, you've got to go to,
10 dot.
you've got to go to Article 10.
So
7-1.
I did that. I'm sorry
Yeah,
sorry to
okay.
belabor. And I had a question about the, what's the name, what would you call it in here? Sorry. Routine maintenance of boats. What does that entail? What is the routine maintenance of boat? Like, what is he going to be painting boats? Is there gonna be, toxic materials there? Because I think Article 10 touches on some additional requirements, unfortunately, that we need to look into if I don't want to say use, because that's probably not the right, the process or the work that's going on there is going to, I guess, involve certain hazardous materials or toxic
Well, it won't,
substances
because
or,
you've got marine fouling paints, and those are metal-based. Right there.
yeah.
That's just basic. When you're scraping a hull and working on it, if you're gonna repaint with a marine fouling paint, you've got a copper-based paint or something like that.
Is he doing that currently at his old site? Was he just storing boats? Was he just
No,
cleaning
he was
them?
working, he was working on boats the way he will be doing here. But he has a washdown area, that sediment containment area that I mentioned in the letter.
Yeah.
That is a power washing, and I imagine he'll paint
I
inside.
didn't go that far.
But he will, bottom painting boats is routine maintenance that
So
happens.
I think where I'm going with this is in 10.6D, it outlines a list of 3 things that it says submission for site plan review for business, commercial, and industrial uses shall also include, and it goes 1 through 3. I don't need to, I mean, I can read those if you want me to.
Sure.
Number 1 says a written description of proposed operations in sufficient detail to indicate the degree to which the operations will create traffic congestion, which I think we've kind of touched on. Noise, toxic or noxious matter, vibration, odor, heat, glare, air pollution, waste, and other objectionable effects, along with engineering and architectural plans for mitigating such effects. I'm not sure we need to go down
What
that road.
section are you on?
Sorry, 10.6D.
10 dash.
2 was just the proposed number of shifts to be worked and maximum number of employees. I think you've touched on that. And just 3 was a list of all hazardous materials to be hauled, stored, used, generated, or disposed of on the site, and any pertinent state or federal permits required. So, I mean, that's where, when I started looking at this and it was in the conditional use, I said, well, okay, what's our purpose for reviewing this?
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I started digging a little bit further.
Right.
Some of what that might include, Bruce, might be the MSDS sheets, for the different, materials that he's using there.
Yeah.
That'll talk about the storage and handling. So each one of the paints would have an OSHA, MSDS sheet to go along with that. And I think that's something Brian and I had talked about, like what he'd need to have that on site. So that may be.
One of the problems
Items that he
is
already
you have
has.
a septic system there, and you're surrounded by residential areas. And if you start throwing stuff down into a septic system that's toxic, those residential areas quite often have wells.
I mean, the OSHA disposal wouldn't allow for that. The OSHA, the MSDS sheets wouldn't allow for that type of, for that type of disposal of
Right.
those types of materials. Yeah.
Well, I think
So
you've
paints
hinted at,
Paints, for example,
Right.
aren't permitted to be disposed of in that fashion. They have to, if you're gonna have them in a, in a paint container, can only be a set amount that can remain in the container, and that has to be dried, and then it has to be disposed of in a, in a particular fashion, so.
Same way with oil, if he's gonna change oil.
Right.
Transmission fluid,
Yeah.
no different, as you said, from
Yeah,
a
all of those
garage.
items.
Well, if you're cleaning up motor parts, you may be using stuff that's really
Solvents.
toxic.
The same thing, all of that, the MSDS is gonna say that those all have to be
Exactly.
collected, all have to be collected and disposed of properly. I mean, you're not gonna find any standard that says, go into the bathroom and chuck it down the
Who
toilet.
gets to review that?
So-
Who gets to
so-
go out and inspect?
so hold on. You've alluded to this in the application. You've got section 5 in here that says, here's the Brightwork, a best management practices manual for mains, boat yards, and
Right.
marinas. It's very sketchy, and it says, if you read it, it says, we're gonna do it according to text section 2 fueling.pdf, and it's sort of a high-level outline of something that isn't provided. Is it saying that the work processes are going to conform with a well-established practice that we'd find, for example, being used down at Chicks Marina, just the same, or?
If it is.
That was my understanding,
And-
that's
and,
why I
how
included
is that?
this. is that-
So I think we're looking for something that maybe gives us a little better understanding of what that process is and a comfort that it is enforced rather than just spoken to. Because we don't have that expertise in hand. You know.
It's an odd area, and it's not a big plot of land, and you're surrounded by residences, a lot of residences in that area. And so even though it's free enterprise zone, it's a conditional use.
Yeah.
And in a site plan review, we want to see that that conditional use is not going to affect the residents there, as well as any other.
So if you want more detail as to what he's gonna be doing and how he's gonna dispose, I tried, maybe it's too high a level of, attaching that manual maybe was too, we want more detail than that. I'm sure that it's out there. But Brian's intent was to
Yeah.
follow what,
We would want to know what standards you're going to adhere to, specifically especially in disposal of toxic materials, noise use. You alluded to the reduction in employees, but, is it going to be like that all the time? Like I said, twice a year, there may be boats coming and going as, you start up a season or you close a season. How busy is it going to get at the peak of its use?
I think if whatever you can provide can satisfy the 10.6D
Yeah.
submission requirements sufficiently, I think we could get behind it. I just
Okay.
don't think it,
well, I just wanted to hear it. That's why we're here for.
yeah. There's just not enough in here that really satisfies that, and
Yeah, that's understood.
George?
yeah, that was it.
Okay. So I guess, we've got some stuff that you're gonna get us by December 5th.
Yep.
So, I guess we can, again, conditionally say it's, complete pending as soon as they add in information on this paragraph here.
How they're gonna conform with address 10.
Yeah, 1010,
I think it was,
10.6D.
yeah, I think the other questions were sightlines, the
Yep.
aerial GPS superimposed with the plan, and then the intended use of the parking area, I guess, or unless,
Or maybe a proposed,
yeah.
Proposed intended use
Restrictions
of the
on
parking
site.
area is very
how do you,
important.
how do you ensure sightlines are maintained?
Yeah. And I think we have the information from the abutters from Arundel. Is that?
Yes.
Correct, we have those
So-
in the file
Okay.
there.
So you don't need them again? Okay.
It's gone out.
Yeah.
All right.
Especially on the sight lines, I'd like to see it from a motorist's point of view. For example, if there were a boat parked there, the largest boat that he thinks he might park in that
Right.
area,
Yeah.
not just an aerial view.
Yeah, if he just if he only does stuff in those two little circles that you've shown there, and just leaves that big parking area as a parking area, it's probably not a problem.
Not for boats, but for cars.
Cars, yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
yeah,
Respect, yeah, okay.
but if he's gonna start storing boats up there, it's gonna be, that's,
Yeah, this is what Brian came up with in meeting with David, so I'll
So you talk to him,
I'll
but you don't, we don't want to approve this with unnecessarily overly stringent restrictions.
Yeah, appreciate
If it's
that.
not, say that can only be used for cars, if in fact that's not true. And you can still preserve the sightlines.
yeah.
That's great. I can't ask for more than that. Okay, I think I've got a to-do list.
Okay, so, wanna have a motion, that it's,
Case manager.
I will, we're gonna get a motion first.
I'll make a motion to deem it complete, subject to receipt of the additional materials.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All right, we didn't do a case manager on either of the last two. So, we need a case manager on this and a case manager on the, minor subdivision change from FR Engineering, which he's mostly gotta fill out his goodies. Now, you just did
I just did a
a minor, you wanna do another?
I'll do another minor.
Okay. Good, that's easy.
I have to roll, so.
And I know everybody's just jumping out of their skin to wanna do this one for Bruce, so.
I'll do this one if you want.
Okay. Alrighty, I guess that's it. I just want to mention, Ed and I are meeting with Lori and Werner tomorrow to discuss road acceptance policy, to just try to figure out what the selectmen want us to do and how we're gonna fit that in. And we'll report back December 5th, I guess,
next meeting.
as to what we got,
Yep.
where we are.
I also just want to let the board know that I won't be in attendance on December 5th, but we'll make sure that we have somebody here. So more than likely, Matt Philbrick will be here.
Great.
So,
Okay.
Thank you.
Very good. Wow, we need one more item.
Motion to adjourn?
I'll second that.
Third.
Okay, all in favor? Okay.
Have a nice
Thank you, Bruce.
Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thank you.